Hey guys, welcome back to some more AFK Arena. In today's video, I'm going to be going through my top 5 signature items to max out to 30. Now, there's going to be some other things we do talk about along the way. For instance, order of upgrading your signature items. You know, if you started fresh and maybe you're at like chapter 15 now, you know, you're starting to upgrade signature items, we can look at the order you want to go through with actually upgrading them. We'll talk a little bit about level 20 signature items as well, because there's some relevant ones there. But yeah, I think that covers it, so let's get into it. Okay, so a few disclaimers at the start. I'm not going to include Celestials and Hypergenes. I'm trying to cater towards the masses with this one. If you are building a Celestial or Hypergene, you know, you're doing a Stargazing account. For instance, me on this account, I'm Stargazing for Lucretia. She's going to be a high priority for me. The other thing is Irons, Albedo. If you got them, Irons is definitely a top priority for me. He's just absolutely savage, so he would be like your number one. And then Albedo is really high on that list as well because she's fantastic. But because you know, some people didn't get them, we're not going to look at it. And another one is Arthur. So Arthur is another fantastic one to upgrade. However, he's getting harder to do due to the fact of all the exchange events for other dimensionals. So he's really nice to have at 30. However, I normally only like to do Arthur if you can get the... once you actually fully obtain him through the Labyrinth store, you can start getting those dimensional upgrades here. I only really like to do his 20 to 30 with those and save the normal ones for others. However, the exception for that in dimensionals is Irons. I just think using your red chest to get Irons maxed out is definitely worth it because he's a beast if you do have him and you haven't upgraded him yet, because I feel like by now most people have. Anyway, that's a disclaimer. No Celestials, Hypergenes, but normally Celestials and Hypergenes will take a priority if you're gazing for them as your main priority. Something like the two main ones I can see people doing as like a carry would be Lucretia and Taylene, and both are really good, so not too bad there. Anyway, going into mine, and these aren't going to be in a specific order. We're going to go through the 3 damage dealers that I'll talk about first, and then we'll go through the 2 supports that I'll talk about, and then we'll talk about ordering, talk about some level 20s and stuff like that. So the first one that I do want to look at is going to be Iron. Now, Iron is just, he's a great early game carry. So basically, I'll tell you the 3 DPS we're going to go through. We're going to go through Iron, Stitchy, and Soros. So those are the 3. Reason being, they're 3 really strong early game carries, so very worthwhile upgrading early on. And if they're your early game carry, it's very nice to be able to just upgrade them throughout the progression. So whichever one you chose as your carry would be the first one that I do upgrade to 30 because it's your main carry. And then after that, we'll talk about going on past that. But Iron, being able to freeze his enemies for 4 seconds with his ultimate is really nice. So his 10 and 20 is fantastic as well, but getting that extra 2 seconds of freeze can be really nice. Also, like I said, if it's your main carry, getting him to 30 signature item is going to be very helpful for the stats as well. This is why Shamira really drops off, because even though she is a really good early game carry, we do have lab coin issues now in the game with all the dimensional exchanges, but also she's one that you're going to use early on, but then not upgrade the signature item, so she's going to fall off in that sense as well. For basically, if you're using a random other carry and you're not too sure, it's always safe to upgrade to 10 in my opinion. Bit of fun, you get them pretty frequently. 20 is not the end of the world, but you know, you really want to be careful when you're upgrading to level 30 signature item. But Iron, just general reasons, obviously just a fantastic campaign unit, but also an amazing PvP unit. So he's going to have uses everywhere. Great early game carry, into mid game, into late game. It never falls off. Really worthwhile investment. Next up, we have Stitchy. Now, this guy we all know is a beast throughout the whole game as a carry. Dealing damage based on the enemy's max HP just makes him savage. So he's a bit of a no-brainer here. The signature item, you can get away with level 20, but level 30 on his signature item is just nuts. It allows like less downtime between shields on him. It just becomes really powerful. Plus, also, if he's your main carry, you can use the stats as well. You can put him in the front row, you can put him in the back row. He's really versatile. He can splash around a lot of teams and still be very functional. So Stitchy, just an all-round great character. On my new account, he will be the first one that I take to level 30 because he's going to be my main unit. And he's just once again, the 7 seconds may not sound like much, but increasing that duration of the blood shield, meaning that it can almost like flow shield to shield to shield to shield, is really fantastic. He does have this weird thing where when he deals damage with his ultimate, between dealing the damage and absorbing the shield, he does have a little bit of downtime, which still could catch you out for damage. But in general, just another fantastic carry from the early to the late game and worth it. Next up, we have Soros. Now, Soros, once again, good carry. He's not the best carry. He's not as good as Aioli and Stitchy, in my opinion. However, he is a really solid carry. He just takes a lot more retries and stuff like that, and getting the right synergies, because obviously CC does make him suffer with his passive, but he's definitely worthwhile taking to 30, especially if you are using as your carry, because not only is he going to do really well in campaign and stuff like that, but then you shift over to bosses and he's like the go-to guy for pretty much every boss. And the signature item level 30 is, if you're building, say, a Stitchy and a Soros, or an Aioli and a Soros, I'd almost lean to, even though I feel like the others are better end game, I feel like Soros is going to be more helpful through the whole progression, so you may prioritize him. However, the thing to remember is that in bosses, in guild hunts, in Twisted Realms, you can use mercenaries. So if you're happy to pick up a mercenary every time for those battles, you probably don't have to stress as much about Soros. Like I said, the other two are a little bit better carries in the campaign and stuff. And if you're happy to go ahead and get a mercenary for those other ones, then, you know, you can leave the Soros out. But the cool thing about upgrading your own Soros, if you say don't have an Ascended Twins, you can then in these boss battles go ahead and mercenary an Ascended Twins. Soros is a lot easier to build, and then you can have much better scores in your battles doing it that way. So, but Soros, obviously, the thing that makes him work is his 30 signature item. So it's actually like crucial to him being a functional character. He can be okay at 20, but when he's healing his whole team at 30 signature item, that is where he actually starts to work. So a very important signature item. And he's the kind of guy that he may not be like the best, but I can't really ever see him coming out of boss metas when you've got an effective healer that deals the most damage too. It's just ridiculous. So wise investment, worthwhile in my opinion. Now we're going to look at the two supports. Obviously, Rowan goes in there. Now, Rowan's signature item is a little bit of a boring one. For me personally, and you may be like me, where you look at signature items and you want something like the Soros, where it changes the gameplay when you get it. Now, it may look boring on this, just increasing the amount of energy that the potion restores. However, it does change things. Like being able to have an ally hit 600 energy and then instantly get put to full energy and use their ultimate is huge. Plus, on top of that, Rowan is just like the best support in the game, in my opinion, or the best easy to obtain support in the game. And on top of that, when you do get into the late game, so he's probably going to be, we'll talk about it in a sec, like the second signature item you look at upgrading. And by that stage, you're probably going to have a full team of 240 unless you are a spender. And with that, Rowan, especially if you get him ascended, can then easily slot into the front row and start pseudo tanking. And on the signature item, obviously he gets some dodge and HP, which are going to be really valuable for him going into the front row. So yeah, Rowan's is just absolutely fantastic. Like I said, it looks a bit boring. It's like, oh, what, I go from 120 to 200 to 400, but that 400 energy is actually huge. Before we get into the next one, honorable mention that I just wanted to quickly look at is going to be Isolde. Basically, Isolde can't be controlled while using his toxic transfusion, and he basically keeps a pretty high uptime of this with this signature item with good haste levels. If you are doing an Isolde carry or you really like Isolde, he's one that's really not bad to invest in. It's just that normally most people would be doing one of those other three as a carry and then looking at supports, but Isolde's still a really cool one. But my fifth one that I really wanted to look at is going to be Silas. I'm absolutely loving this guy. Fantastic support. His signature item, just like, this is one of those ones where I like it. I really do enjoy it because he's plus 30 is like that added thing. It's not like just a numbers increase on what happens. Allied heroes that have more than 50% of their max health receive an attack rating increase of 20%. So it's just like a flat buff for your team. It's a really nice one to go ahead and collect. Like I said, from early game through to the late game, he's just a fantastic hero to have in your team. Great synergies with Stitchy, Aioli, all that stuff. And like I said, I mean, just the straight attack increase for being above 50, it basically just gives everyone at the start of the battle a 50% increase. If your main damage dealer sits in the back row, doesn't take too much damage, you're pretty solid from there. So Silas comes after Rowan in priority for me, but still really, really strong. Okay, now it's time for some quick other notes, just some other things I want to touch on, just to cover a few extra things. Gwyneth, my girl Gwyneth, level 30 is okay, but it's not vital. If you get to level 25, you do get some extra haste, so worthwhile going to 25. But for me, if I went to 25, I'd probably just take it to 30. So if you are using her as a carry, go ahead. Not a great early game carry. She needs to be 221 to get the stun on the lightning arrows. So she's going to be a bit of a later option type thing. We do have other units, something like Leica, and like I said, level 10 signature items, no worries, go nuts, play around. Level 20, kind of think about it. Something like Leica, if we look at her, her level 20 is fantastic. So like if you have a Leica and you use her all the time, bumping her up to 20 is going to be really nice for you. Raising that damage. Like I said, the 30 just gives some extra accuracy, which isn't the most important thing. So Leica sitting at a 20 is going to be nice. And then we have something like a Pharrell, and there's going to be more that I don't mention, but I just wanted to go through these few. And Pharrell is one of those ones where it's just a numbers increase every time. Obviously 30 is going to be nice. I wouldn't prioritize him over any of those other units, however, for 30. But if you are using him as a core part of your team, level 10, level 20, both really nice. Obviously 30 is going to be better, but he goes down the priority list a bit further for me. But that's just the kind of thing I want to look at. Thorin, also, if you're a big cheese balls, you can upgrade Thorin's signature item. It's going to be handy for him, but that's if you're a big cheese user. And once again, that would fall down further in priority because it's not till later that I'd be worrying too much about doing Thorin cheese. Now we are going to look at the order of which I would do these guys in. So if we go in here, we'll look at, this is the simplest way I could think of to show you the order. So the first one that I would do would be your main carry. So like I said before, irons, you're doing irons, just irons it up, no worries. So if you're using Euron as your main carry, go nudge. If you're going with a Stitchy, do I have a Stitchy? Yep. Then I'd go him. Or if you're going Soros, then I'd do the Soros. So completely up to you which one of... Geez, I cannot click today. Completely up to you which one you're using as your carry. Like I said, if you have something else as your main carry, go nuts. I'd probably stop them at 20 and see how you go. But these three are the three main carries for the game that I would be looking at. And whichever one you're using, I would go with. Like I said, aside from if you're going for a Celestial or Hypergen, two main ones again being Taylene or Lucretia, because they're two good solo type units, or two good carries anyway. I would go one of those two, but if you're going normal factions, these are the three I would be looking at for your first level 30 signature item. Now, I know once again, we are going to have the copies of them to get them ascended, get them high ascension to be able to do this. But by the time you get to sort of that chapter 20-ish, you should be rolling into having something ascended, getting select summons. Obviously, we have the wish list pretty functional. You should hopefully have the RNG that if you've got these three on your wish list to be able to build one of these decently. So that would be the first one. Whichever one of those three. After that, I would go to Rowan because Rowan's just fantastic support. You're going to have him in your team the whole time. No dramas. That is the first two I would go. So, for instance, if we had Euron as our main carry, we had Rowan, that's the order I would do it. Next up, it depends on your progression and how far you are getting in the game. And how many more you can build. So basically, if we're getting to the stage, you got to consider that eventually you will start fighting multiple enemies, but it's at boss stages, but it's going to take a while. So for me, in this order, the next one I would actually upgrade would be the Soros. Now, purely because if I hadn't started Stargazing Twins, yada, 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 all that stuff, at least having the Soros, he's going to give me a secondary damage option. Unfortunately, they are both wilders. Obviously, if you had Stitchy and then you did Soros, it really spreads things out, which is really nice. But he gives you a damage option for just campaign and stuff like that. Also gives you some more sustain. You can use him and Iron in the same team in those, you know, chapter 25, 26, 27 type thing. And then also it once again will increase all your boss damages because you won't have to use a mercenary Soros anymore for that, and you can use a mercenary twins, which people always have issue with using an elite twins in the boss fights, and then that will ramp up your scores as well. After that, it's sort of a play it and see how your account is going. If you're into multiple boss enemies, you could swap over. You can do the Stitchy now. Like I said, it does then become what dimensionals do you have. You'll probably start stargazing. You start looking celestial hypergeans. But basically, the main order that I wanted to look at was do your main damage dealer out of those three. If you have a different main damage dealer, only go to like 10, 20 on them. And then second unit would be Rowan for me because the support is just fantastic. And like I said, when you start building Rowan, you're probably starting to have a full team of 240 by the time you're looking at your second level 30 signature item. And that's when Rowan's going to get a lot of benefit out of it because you can put him in the front row. You can have that extra dodge, those extra stats, and survive better. But anyway, that was probably a long-ish video. I don't really know, but hopefully it made some sense for you guys. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you have an awesome day, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next one. Cheers.